Welcome. Following is a conversation with Poshak Dua. Poshak Dua is an up and coming, very talented scientific mind reader. He calls himself an illusionist, but he's a very skeptical guy. And that's what makes him one of the topmost artists that is going to change the entire way in which people view magic, or at least the science behind the magic. In our conversation we spoke about the impact of social media, how magicians have a beautiful craft and how do they actually display it to people. And there was one magic trick that he showed. I believe you are going to enjoy this conversation a lot. Thank you. Let's initiate. All right. Yeah, we are good to go. And today we have Poshak Dua with me, who is an illusionist and is actually trying to make his mark in the space of mentalists. And I am completely unaware in this regard. Completely, I have no idea what an illusionist do. I have no idea, what kind of a mental tricks are you going to use. I would be really honored if you do some kind of a card trick here. Although we are just conversing here virtually, I'm open to anything. I'm really excited to have you here. And I would say, first of all, I'm really grateful that you took out the time to do this thing. And yeah, the stage is all yours, man. Can you give a little brief intro about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for having me, Bhuvanyu. I am
My
Poshak
pleasure.
Dua. I'm kind of a magician. I call myself a scientific mind reader. And
Okay.
it's people ask me what that means. It's basically a term that I created myself because when I started as a kid being fascinated by magic tricks and illusions. And I was always a skeptic. So when you start in these things, you either start as a skeptic or someone who believes in magic. And I never believed in magic. And my journey has always been of a person who was like, this is not real. But as I learned the methods and the illusions and the way they were manipulating the mind, I found the method so fascinating that I actually started learning them. And as I started learning them, I realized there's a side of me which is a performer, which likes to show these to people. And I realized this is an art form that makes people happy. It gives them a boost of confidence. It makes their day so fun that they forget all of their worries in their life. So that kind of appealed to me as a kid. And I started doing this. And gradually you progress to a point where people start thinking you're some kind of a real magician or a mind reader who has real powers. But I never wanted to give that kind of an impression to people because, as I said, I was coming being a skeptic. So I started calling myself a scientific mind reader. So people understand that there's a science and a logic behind whatever I do. So that's kind of my background.
But so even I'm very much of a skeptical person. I always try to look through the lines because that's where the truth lies.
Right.
Aren't all magicians some kind of a scientific magicians who are using tricks to actually create illusions? But at the end of the day, there is some kind of a hidden trick that the general audience does not know about.
Yeah. I mean, it's really about making sure how you want people to perceive you as, right? Every brand, be it Nike, Apple, everyone's just telling you a story that they want you to think about yourself and your personality. So for me, it was very important right from the outset that people know what is it that I'm offering them. And when you just say a mind reader, people can come up to you and tell you, oh, can you tell me what will happen in future to me? Or can you tell me? And they can ask really personal questions. And I don't want to mislead them or to think that somehow I can take advantage of them. What I do is purely for entertainment and to make people happy. So it was just a way for me to stand out, but also make sure that my brand is perceived in the way I want people to be. And if you look at the history of magic, people like Harry Houdini and people like Penn and Teller, especially in today's day and age, they are very much skeptics and they call out anyone who thinks or claims to have any kind of supernatural powers. So I like that angle of magic. Plus, I also like the angle of if you look at a person like David Blaine or Darren Brown, these are very famous magicians who people think have real superpowers. And I kind of enjoy that side. But again, like they never openly say they have any superpowers. If they would want you to think that, and I would love to think that, oh, I have superpowers, because a sign of a great magic trick is when you show something so impossible that people think, oh, this man must have superpower. It's like cinema. Like if you watch a really good film, you want that this could happen for real, right?
Correct.
For example, Varun Grover, who I'm quite a big fan of, he said like every documentary should feel like it's a piece of fiction, and every piece of fiction should feel like it's real. And so with my magic, even though it's a piece of fiction or a mind reading trick, I want you to feel it's real, but
Right.
that's about it. I still want you to be aware that it's an art form. So there's a thin line between it, and I like to explore that boundary. Like you said, the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
Likewise, for me, the enjoyment of magic lies somewhere in the middle between what's real and what's magic. And I have to make sure that I cross that boundary and but don't go on the extremes.
Okay, yeah, that is really interesting. So I remember one thing, when I was young, I used to watch AXN a lot. And there was this particular show.
By the way, before we start, I know like a lot of the viewers might be wondering what does this guy do, like what exactly his powers are. And I'll show you something. Some of you might have played around with a Rubik's Cube
Rubik's
as a
Cube.
kid, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you solve it ever? Did you try solving it?
I was able to do it once.
You were able to do it once with the
Once.
algorithm and everything, right?
Yes,
But like,
precisely.
I'll tell you an interesting fact about Rubik's Cube.
Okay.
There was one more guy who couldn't solve the Rubik's Cube, no matter how much he tried. Do you know who he was?
No, I don't.
It was the founder of the Rubik's Cube itself, the guy who invented it, Erno Rubik's. He
Okay.
didn't know how to solve it. He was an architect and he just invented the puzzle. And so to me, that's a great metaphor that you can invent something great and still don't know how to solve it. But if he could solve it, let's say by magic, this is how it would look like. So this is a unsolved cube, and all he had to do was just shake like that. And that's one side solved. That's second. That's third. That's fourth. That's the fifth. And that's the sixth. All six sides solved magically.
Wow,
Thank
that
you.
was so.
That's just a small example of how I start my show. Thank you.
Wow, I'm really impressed. I'm really, really impressed. This conversation is going to go long now. I'm pretty sure I just enjoyed that. Okay. Now let's take a little brief history. What you just said that the art has left the inventor himself, and this is what don't you think all greatest artists do? Their art becomes an extension of themselves, and they evolve, but the art becomes you could say eternal, that it exists in the minds of the folks that have been consumed by it or hypnotized by it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that is the aim of an artist. I personally feel like if you can create a piece of art that lasts beyond you, like that is every
Poshak,
task trying.
the thing is,
do
your
it.
audio is breaking a lot. Your
Yeah.
audio is breaking.
You can still hear me?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you perfectly fine that way.
Perfect. Yeah. So every art form ultimately is trying to create something that people remember for generations. And I don't know about you, but my favorite filmmaker is Stanley Kubrick. And even today, like one of the movies he created is magnificent. It's called 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes.
And it is such a good movie. And even today, if you watch it, it holds you and it gives you a feeling of what could be in the future. And likewise, if you look up to magicians, Harry Houdini, even today, people remember his name, even
Yes.
though
He's no longer with us.
he's no longer with us, people remember because of the kind of legend he's created among magicians, among normal people. So I mean, that's the kind of aim ultimately that every artist is aiming for. My personal quest and what I wonder about is, in today's day and age, is it even valid? Like trying to create a persona or an art that can last for generations in a world where your attention span is like 5 seconds or 10
Precisely.
seconds,
Precisely.
and you want a YouTube video and you want constantly more and more YouTube videos. So how do you create art that lasts for generations in a world where every week you want something new? And if you
Yes.
want something new, the artist would just keep creating these dopamine giving short
Yes.
time span pieces
Yes.
of art, and
Yes.
he will never have the time to create something that lasts for generations, because ultimately you need time to create something like that. And so
Yeah.
that's the question that I was thinking throughout this pandemic, and it gave me a lot of time to think through. I don't even know that I have the answer right now, but I fundamentally believe that we can create systems where artists are enabled to maybe create art that lasts a lifetime. And definitely, like YouTube and all of these platforms are not the solution for it, because all the art that is on YouTube is maybe has a time horizon of like a month, not more than that.
I would actually present a counter argument here because if you look at certain artists on YouTube itself, they have also created evergreen art. So, for example, there is Alan Green. Joe Rogan has been able to do it successfully. Even if he actually passes away, in a decade or so, may God, rest his soul. But the art that he has created, the conversations, the intriguing conversations that, he has had with all these, some variety of entrepreneurs, subject matter experts and friends.
So Joe Rogan's art form is an art form that actually evolved on YouTube. Yes. Before YouTube, you couldn't have a video podcast reaching millions of people. So the art forms that actually got established on YouTube, like podcasts, like I would say, I don't know, streaming game reactions, something that Twitch and YouTube started, something what Mr. Beast does, which every week he's doing something crazier and crazier. These are the new art forms of today's generation. Precisely. And people will be able to create a lot of things on it. But the older art forms, whether it's movies, whether it's magic tricks, all of those things which were created before them, before even these platforms came on, could you present them on YouTube in the same way? I don't think so. Like, you would have to get more creative as to how to present these art forms. Because fundamentally, even if you look at Joe Rogan's comedy, he used his comedic talent to become a great podcast host because people loved him and he had all of these fan following behind him. He was funny and he was curious and all of that. And he was able to use it to create another art form that could last on this new sort of platform. But his older art form, which was comedy, he still does it in the conventional way, where he would release a special every 2 years. So the question is, if you're on these platforms, do you change yourself and become a podcast host or become something else, which also becomes your extension of your personality? I saw your interview with Prakhar K. Pravachan and the way he evolved himself from hosting one kind of videos. And I used to listen to his older videos, PG Radio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when he started doing the other thing, he actually lost me as a viewer. Not anything personal, but just something like I enjoyed the earlier intellectual conversations, but I understand why he did that. And so it's always fascinating where an artist is going and what kind of audience and what kind of things he's choosing to say.
So, to bring up that point with my conversation with Prakhar, he said when one very particular thing, that once you create a classy content and you create a massy content, you need to create 90% of your content for the massy content so that you can deliver 10% of the classy content for the old viewer that is watching you. That is what, even I'm trying to actually juggle with a lot. I want to create deep, meaningful, engaging conversations. But sometimes, a lot of people ask me that, they say that make shorter videos because they are looking for small dopamine hits. And I'm saying, I can't do that. I'm an analyst by heart. I think very analytically, and I cannot provide you that, one short answer. Yeah, maybe in the future, somebody, that works with me might actually create that short form content. But for me, it's really difficult to even think through that because I need to separate the wheat from the chaff to actually bring upon that art form of whatever I'm doing, be it podcast, be it my analysis videos, be it some kind of informatics show that I'm doing. So that is what, I am also very much fascinated by.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think what Prakhar is trying to say by saying you have to create 90% and 10%, he's trying to basically say, if I broaden it out, that you have to find your own business model. Basically, if you want to survive as an artist, you have to figure out how that business model works. And Prakhar is primarily a YouTuber first, and then he started selling courses and doing stuff on top of that. For me, the business model is different. I'm a live performer first. So a lot of the business actually comes from live performances, so I don't have to be a YouTuber. YouTube is something extra on top of it that I might want to do. So it's interesting how people come up with different business models and how they create their own. I really look up to Veer Das in this, because I think he has stayed classy without ever going massy, and he has found his own audience, whether it's in US or whichever country he wants to, because he understood that the kind of comedy he wants to do is a little bit more evolved, and not a lot of people in, and I'm not blaming people in India, but it's just the kind of resources and the access to comedy that we have had. It will take a lot more time for us to evolve to the standards where Vidas is trying to take comedy to. And I think it's the same with magic. I've had exposure as a kid to David Blaine, Darren Brown. Most people in India would have had exposure to K. Lal or PC Sarkar or all of these magicians who used to perform in melas. So the kind of standards that they are thinking through is very different. And introduce something which is up here, you have to go through the ladder.
Exactly.
If someone who has just seen Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham in their life, and I show them 2001 A Space Odyssey or a movie like that, they will not be able to sit through the movie. It's impossible. So now the question is, do I want to take the responsibility of taking them step by step to that, or should I just present this and let people reach over here? And my answer is, I've tried in multiple times. I've tried creating reels or fun stuff, like you're talking about short dopamine stuff. I don't know if you've seen some. I've created some really embarrassing videos on Instagram where I'm trying to enrage dopamine in people. But the problem is, again, like, magic is conventionally an art form that challenges your mind. Even the silliest magic trick is still challenging your mind on some level. So even if you do a silly magic trick, it's very hard for it to go viral on Instagram, because people on Instagram just want to relax or laugh and share witty things. And if you see a magic trick, you won't share it. You'd start thinking, okay, how does this work? I don't know. Okay, let's move on. Like, it'll confuse you, but you would never share it. Okay. So we're figuring out how do you, because it works on virality. Social media works on virality. So how do you unlock virality with something that's primarily challenging your mind and confusing you? It's not relaxing you. Is a fundamentally challenging thing. And very few magicians have been able to crack that and figure out how to go outside of
I think, my perspective here would be that, these short form content, be it YouTube shorts, be it TikTok content or Instagram reels, a very specific genre of creators will be able to, crack that, because it requires a very different form of creativity altogether.
Right.
I tried to experiment a little bit, with reels, and I'm failing miserably, to be very honest. So what I do is I just, stitch together the stories that I post on my Instagram, and that's how I do it.
So I have a formula for you. Okay. I think it's quite easy for anyone who is a spoken person. Like, your art form or what you're doing is basically primarily with words. So going viral is a little more easier. So Kunal Shah, I don't know if you've heard him, but Kunal Shah says, anything that's pretty, witty, or outrage goes viral on social media. So, of course, being pretty won't work. Not saying you're not pretty, but what you're doing is,
I'm okay with that.
You're handsome. But what you're doing, if you just show your handsomeness, that wouldn't take your brand. And if you can be witty, but again, I think funny content works more on the wittier side, like things that are funnier, people share that. So the thing that can work for you, and I've seen a few other people do it, is a little bit of outrage, but not in the sense that you're going above and beyond, but just, and now this is a personal thing, whether a person wants to do this or not. But like, I've seen these motivational speakers, especially someone like Gary Vee works really well on social media, because he's speaking to you and shouting at you that you've got this, you've got to do this. And that outrage, people feel a passion, they comment on it, they share it. And so that kind of level, that sort of level, if you can take it over there, there's a chance of it working in terms of motivational speakers. There's another Indian guy, Raj Shamani. who's
I know him.
who's a
Yeah.
YouTuber, who's getting into YouTube stuff as well now. And
Yes.
he uses a lot of outrage videos on Instagram where he's basically just shouting, work hard every day, do this, do that. And so, yeah, I mean, the models are now established. It's like,
Yes.
and when I realized this, that every platform, I actually, for the longest time, never realized that every platform needs a different kind of a persona or
Exactly.
content.
You cracked it, said.
it hit me it hit me when I could really realize this. I was watching when the pandemic started almost 2 years ago. I was watching a lot of old movies, and I was watching reading a lot of history about magicians and whatever that happened in those days. And I realized Harry Houdini was the biggest superstar in the world in the 1910s, 1920s, I think. People can correct me if the years are a little bit off.
Okay.
And he was considered the biggest superstar in the world. And
Okay.
as soon as cinema came, Harry Houdini changed his style. He was doing these theater shows all around America and world. He changed his style and he started making movies about magic and stuff. But none of them worked because the platform was different. You know what worked?
But
Charlie Chaplin doing comedy antics, just falling. And Harry Houdini, you can imagine his mind. He was like, I'm the greatest magician. I can escape from any challenge. I can do these crazy stunts. But this guy who's just falling off a stair is getting more views. People are watching him because the platform changed.
yes.
Cinema as an art form was a completely different thing. People didn't want to watch someone doing impossible because cinema mein you can easily fake something doing something impossible. What
Right.
people wanted to see was like a Mr. Bean or a Charlie Chaplin type character who's just doing these funny things, and that relaxed them more. So as we introduced, so that was like a big shift coming from theater to cinema. Now we see that shift happening every 1 year. Imagine what's going through an entertainer's mind. Every year there is a new
They
platform.
have to evolve themselves.
They have to evolve every year now, and that's super challenging. But it's also fun, like to figure out how you can have different styles of you in different platforms.
Okay, so I will present a different viewpoint because you said Raj Shamani and you mentioned Gary Vee. So I don't know if you know, but Gary Vee has been creating content since 2006 on YouTube. Did you know that? And he used to do only one kind of content. He had picked one specific niche, that was wine tasting.
Wine library, yes.
Wine library, precisely. And with that, he understood how the mechanism of the whole social media evolved. So, as you had rightly pointed out, that all of these different social platforms, they require a different persona to be presented out. And I don't know if you know this, but Raj Shamani is actually a student of Gary Vee. Did you know that?
I would assume he is, but I didn't know that how
He
big of a
started out
student.
his career under his guidance himself because he was a
Okay.
keynote speaker. He used to be a
Okay.
keynote speaker. He used to actually
Right.
get his earning as a keynote speaker, and
Mhm.
somehow their paths converged, Gary Vee's and Raj Shamani's.
Right.
And post which he actually inspired him to create content, that start putting out content on social media, and that's how Raj Shamani has become what Raj Shamani is today. So that's what he is doing. My theory on this thing is that when you are creating art form, and that too when you have to create eternal art form, you need to create and build a persona that is always going to be similar for a very long period of time. So you have to be consistent. If I make a video today of 5 minutes and tomorrow I'm making a video of 1 minute, then there is no consistency. So I make sure that if I'm making content which is long form, I will do that only. Maybe on a different social platform, I might consider that, this is not working. Let's do something else.
Yeah.
So then it would require a different persona, but at least on one specific social platform, it becomes very important that you are able to deliver consistency in this regard.
Right. Basically, you have to be authentic. You can't
Precisely.
You can't fake
Yes.
it. You have to be real on whatever you're trying to present, and that's quite accurate. Which is why I kind of I feel with magic, it's such a different art form. It kind of requires you to have a little bit of a mystery, not put yourself out there all the time.
Yes.
And if I think of magic as a good metaphor for magic is imagine lightning. Okay. When you see lightning, you feel, wow, what a great, amazing thing of nature.
Yes.
Okay. And the reason you feel that is for two things, because it's so vast and out of your reach and so big. So you feel wonder about that. And the second thing is, it happens very rarely. Now imagine if lightning is happening every day. By the
Yes.
10th day, you will be like, this thing that happens every day, even though the
Exactly.
vastness is still wonderful,
There.
but
There.
because it's now happening every day, it kind of loses its charm. It's the same with magic. For people to feel wonderful about something, people to feel charmed about it, you can't present it to them every day, which is why magic worked wonderfully in theaters in the 1800s, because people would visit them rarely, like once a month or once a year. They would come and watch it in theaters when the entertainer would be there, because he had to be physically there.
Yes.
But in a cinema, when Charlie Chaplin was there all the time, so people could go and watch him like 5 times in a month if they wanted
Yes.
to, and that's what they did. So now magic wouldn't work in that scenario, because you have to be present very rarely. So which is why I don't put out a lot of social media content, and I'm trying to figure out how do I position myself in a sense where I am in front of people, people can see me, but it's not so often that they feel they lose the charm, they lose the wonder of it all. And I've seen it happen to a lot of illusionists who start out with idealism, and gradually they lose all of it, and they reach to a point where they make magic trivial. And
Yes.
there's a very big quote of a great magician. His name is Max Maven. Not a lot of people would know it, but magicians love him. He's like a magician's magician.
Okay.
And he has this quote where he says that the greatest pitfall of a 21st century magician is that he has taken something wonderful and made it trivial. So the classic persona of a magician would be, oh, he has sponge balls and he produces birds,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he will appear a rabbit out of a hat. And not saying all of that is bad. I mean,
But it's
some
trivial.
kids would enjoy it, yeah, all of that. But if you're really trying to give people a deep impact of magic, that's not what you would do.
Right.
So for me, it's really trying to figure out, because these algorithms on YouTube and Facebook are set in a way where they want you to post consistently, but my art form doesn't allow that. So it's really trying to figure out a balance between the two, and how I can integrate virality without being able to be consistent and only be. I think David Blaine does that really well. So David Blaine puts out like one special in every 2-3 years, and people watch it, like they
Okay.
really watch it. And he also works on YouTube, and he's
Okay.
figured out ways where people would watch him. So he would usually shoot videos with whoever's trending, the greatest influencers. Now he has access to all
Yes.
of those influencers as well. So there's really a way you can still present magic in today's world, but it's really a way of it's figuring out how you do this. And I think you can do it. Like that's the fun of being a magician in 21st century, evolving your art form and staying with the times.
Yeah. So you correctly pointed out that your art form requires an air of mystery around you about what you are going to do, and make keeping the people guessing. Because the thing is, and I've been reading this book. I am not able to recall the name right now, but the fact remains the same that once people are able to predict your next move, they lose interest. And as a
Hmm.
magician, you have to always keep them on your toes, always keep them guessing. So I have two pieces of concepts that I think that may be able to help you. Number one, just pick one social platform and put out one aspect of your personality, not the whole personality. That would enable you to actually, build an audience on that platform, and then use it to create virality around the whole personality that you have. That would be number one. Number two would be is that, and I saw that on your Instagram that you did a number trick with a girl on the stage. That what she was thinking. You actually start recording a lot of testimonials of your customers around who is he, what is he doing. Because that way, what it will enable is the person who will be watching your content, but they will not be watching you. They will be watching the person that you have already bedazzled. That again creates an air of mystery around you. So these are my 2 cents.
Right.
Again, it's leave it
Yeah.
or take it.
No, I completely agree. I think that's what David Blaine also did when he started out. And I'll say David Blaine a lot because he's kind of my love and why I do magic. When I was a kid, I watched his video for the first time and I ran out of the house and I screamed at my mom. I said, "Mom, is magic real?" And my mom was like, "Pata nahi hoga." and I got, because he was just looking at people's eyes and telling them what card you're thinking of, 5 of clubs, 7 of spades. And so that moment is, ever since I was a kid, is in my head. So yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. So what David Blaine did when in one of his first shows, in which came out in 1997, the year I was born in, when what he did was he turned the camera towards the audience. So David Blaine was not the star of the show; it was the audience. So there's a pregnant lady, and David Blaine bites a coin and spits it, and the coin comes back. And the pregnant lady says, "I think I'm gonna have my baby over here. This is so amazing." And that's like the first shot of the show. And you're instantly hooked in. You're like, what is this? What is this? It's not the magic that's amazing. Magic is amazing.
It's the reaction.
It's the way it's affecting people, right? Now, the only concern is it did work at that time. But now with virality, even if what you said, it's very interesting and a lot of magicians are doing it. Even if I shift the focus to the audience and they are amazed by it, people will not share it. They will laugh at it. They will comment on it. They'll be like, "Wow, oh my God, how amazing." But they will not share it. So my cracking is like people only share stuff which makes them feel great. Like, look what I found. This is something amazing. This is right. This is witty. This is cool. Like figuring out something which people would share. It's
I understand where you're coming from in that regards, and as someone who actually works in the marketing domain personally, so I am most of the time, if you have already seen my content, I'm creating a lot of marketing and business content. You are a very unique person. That's why I thought I am going to reach out to you in this regard. What I'm thinking of is, if you have to create an air of virality for your own content, you need to think about the recall factor. Every time somebody thinks of an illusionist or someone like that, they should think Poshak Dua. Okay, and I know you have been associated with Karan Singh Magic.
Yeah. In fact, this is just a plug. If anyone's in Delhi, we are doing a show on 13th and on 27th. The tickets are on Book My Show. I'll be opening the show, and then it's Karan's show, but I'll be there. You can meet me as well, and I'll be opening the show. And
you know what? I'll be in Delhi during that time. If
great! Come, man.
I live in Delhi, dude. I live in Delhi.
Yeah. So I will definitely love to have you there.
Yeah, for sure. If it's possible, I will definitely come. I promise you. This is my
it's a Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting. Now, so I think there's also an interesting story on how we started to interact. I was commenting on a person's Twitter.
I am sorry if I hurt you, but I think it's a great way to meet. Yeah, it's a great way to interact.
So there was a motivation post by a big influencer, a person that I admire, and I asked him that do I have the potential to succeed? Poshak out and about said, "No, you will not succeed."
So the way you had framed it was very funny. And so maybe you were trying to be funny and sarcastic in the post. So I was
just asking question. I was like, I'm going to ask this question. That's it.
Okay. So I was trying to be funny and I said nahi. But then you were so kind and you replied to it, loved your magic and all of that. I was like, wow, this guy is amazing. I have to talk to him.
And it has evolved over time. Like if you had met me 2 years ago, I would have taken it personally. I would have gotten hurt internally. And said, यार कैसे बोलती है यार मेरे इतनी मेहनत से जो ना I admire that person and जो ना इसने एकदम से जो ना वीडियो में पानी फेर दिया and then I was like नहीं यार, like the dude is having fun, I'm having fun, why do I have to take it seriously? I don't take shit seriously now. Like everything in my life I'm not taking seriously, even though there is some serious shit also going on.
Your social media persona has to be completely different from what you are in real life. In real life, when people can see each other's faces, they are never mean to each other. Not, I would hope not. But in social media, like it's so easy when you can't see someone's face to prank them or just write, and especially when you don't know them. And
Yes.
do you know about Nicholas Nassim Taleb? He's a
Yes.
very famous philosopher.
Yeah.
So he
I've
has
read his
blocked
books.
me on Twitter. I was just
Oh,
asking questions about Bitcoin to him, and he doesn't like that, and so he blocked
he's
me.
he's
And he
he's
keeps
a
blocking
complete
people.
outrage guy. See, Nassim
Exactly,
Taleb is a very smart person, no doubt about it. But he has blocked the likes of Jordan Peterson. He has blocked the
exactly.
likes of Eric Weinstein.
Imagine that.
Because the thing is, he has reached his mental threshold. You see, and Naval Ravikant says this a lot, that if all of the information that you are receiving is from social media, every part of your every aspect of your personality would actually correspond to social media itself. So I
Hmm.
actually feel bad for the guy. Sometimes I really feel, because he's a super smart person. I'm not even 0.1% of the intellect that he possesses, but he spends so much time arguing with all these folks online that you
Right.
would say that he's not doing the right job. It's just I sympathize with Nicholas Nassim Taleb in this regard. You pointed out very
Hmm.
correctly, and we are seeing this outrage culture coming up. Even it has increased 10 times since the start of COVID, because the whole world shifted online, and we
Hmm.
are like, now what do we do? Everyone is
Yeah, yeah.
interacting online. We need to actually share love. you
The
know
outrage culture has gone so far that we just cancelled an entire country. Russia is cancelled. Like with the economic sanctions, Russia is no one. We just cancelled an entire country. So yeah, no, I
Precisely.
completely agree.
Yeah, man.
Um, yeah, it's your behavior on social media has to be. It's like the way we are creating content, and we understand that the way we are creating content is very different on different platforms. The way we are behaving has to be very different from the way we behave in real life,
Yeah,
because real life has real consequences. Okay,
precisely.
and
Precisely.
the social media has no consequences. There's not as much spam in real life as there is in your email, and there's a reason why there is, because there's anyone can send you an email. There's no consequence. No one is coming in giving you spam all the time in real life.
Yeah.
So our behaviors are completely different over there, and a lot of tech will eventually fix it. I hope Zuckerberg doesn't fix it with his metaverse, but yeah, I think
So,
he's going to make things more complicated. But yeah, someone's going to fix it. But with Talib personally, like I feel like the guy is he has a personality of being a little on the face and a little more arrogant than other people's, and that personality maybe he developed it as a defense mechanism as a child. I don't know.
precisely, he's always on the fence.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
and
interact with his post. If he puts out a link, I just watch it and then I just go do my job. And that's how it is. You see, if you actually spend time on Twitter or maybe on Instagram, you will see that it's suffocating. You're being bombarded by content every single microsecond, not even a second. But in real life, I'm sitting inside my home, I'm with my family, or I'm with my friends. You are not being suffocated. So it's very, very important that you actually take a break from social media and have an in-person talk. Or maybe, just call up a friend that you know from your past and have a conversation with them so that your mind is able to relax. Our brains have not yet evolved to deal with the kind of, you know, what would be the right term? I think noise, with the type of noise that is constantly being beamed onto our brain. That's how I
mm,
think about it.
yeah, because when we were in tribes, anyone who would go against us, that
They would be
was
killed.
survival risk. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if a millions of people are against us, in your head, you're like, I'm finished. But actually, social media is not real life. You're not finished at all. It's something very different. And yeah, so it's fascinating how that works. I mean, for me personally, I've never used social media for my personal things. I've only used it because ever since I was a kid, I started doing magic when I was in fourth or fifth grade, even before that. And
Okay.
seriously, when I was in fourth or fifth grade, by the time I was in 11th, I was sure this is what I want to do in my life.
Okay.
And so my journey has been very different because as soon as I came on social media, I was always a magician. So I never had that personal side to me. I was always branding myself as a magician. I was always standing out in a different way. But I can imagine someone who's branding themselves as a person or just posting personal pictures. Most of my social media you'll rarely find any personal pictures. Even the ones you'll find have something to do with me
The art
branding
form.
myself as, yeah, the art.
Yeah.
Because that's mainly who I am. Even when I'm sitting at home, I'm just thinking about a new card trick or a new way to psychologically influence people, put something in their minds, how I can do this, all of that. So that's what I put out on social media, and different people have different views on it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's quite interesting. Do you want
It's
to see
interesting.
another trick? Let's
For
try
sure,
something.
I would love to.
Yeah. This is, I'll tell you a little bit of a story before we start. In fact, I'll tell you three stories.
Okay.
These are three stories of coincidence. Okay.
Okay.
So the first story of coincidence started when I was very young. I was in fourth grade, I think, and I loved collecting these Pokemon Tazos. They used to come in a packet of chips,
Chips.
Cheetos, yeah,
Cheetos,
all of
yeah.
that. Yeah. And I used to collect these Pokemon Tazos, and I had a huge collection of them. The only problem was that I had to consume Cheetos every day to be able to collect these. And like after a 5 6 month long hiatus, my mom said, enough is enough. You cannot have this Cheetos every day. This is junk food, whatever. This is harming your body and everything. So she said, no more Cheetos every day. And I started crying because I was like, these Pokemon cards are very important to me. They're my collection and all of that. So she said, okay, you're getting this one last Cheetos, no more after that. So I was like, cool. This one last Cheetos, I have to get the best Pokemon Tazo possible. And I was praying to God and hoping for it. I went to the store, I picked up the Cheetos and I opened it. And to my surprise, I had not one Pokemon Tazo, I had three Pokemon Tazos stuck one on top of each other, and they were like the best Pokemon Tazo that I wanted at the time. It was some blue evolved
Bulbasaur.
Pokemon, something like that. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
remember the name,
I don't
but
know. It just came into my mind.
Bulbasaur, Charizard, something like that. Okay, and I was like, what? Like, is magic real? Okay, whatever I'm manifesting is happening in this world. So that blew me away. I was like, okay, if I really believe in something, it can happen. So, like, that was the first story of coincidence of my life. The second story of coincidence was when I was in 11th grade, and everyone was telling me that, you should focus on studies, do something else, people won't get you, this mind reading thing, people won't understand, and all of that. And I made a couple of videos on YouTube. It's with the Trouble Seeker Team channel. You can go and
Oh,
see.
nice. Nice.
And those videos went viral. And I started getting calls from India's Got Talent. I made a few brand videos and all of that. So these things started happening when I was in school. And I was like, wow, this can really work. What I'm hoping for, if I actually put in enough effort, and if without even putting that much of effort, if I'm getting this, I'm really good at this and this can actually work. So that gave me a feeling of, oh, wow, if you actually push through things and if you actually do certain things, things could work out. So that was the second story of coincidence of my life.
Okay.
The third story, Bhuvanyu.
Bhuvanyu.
How do you pronounce your name?
Bhuvanyu.
Bhuvanyu.
Bhuvanyu. Yeah.
Bhuvanyu. Okay. Bhuvanyu. I am not going to tell you
Okay.
because I'm hoping you and me together, and mainly you, create this story in this podcast so that everyone who's listening goes and tells it to everybody else. You know what happened? Bhuvanyu did this and this amazing thing happened. So we're going to create this third story of coincidence right
Okay.
here in this podcast. So are you ready for it?
Sure. 100%.
Excellent. So no pressure. I have a deck of cards with me.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
in a
Okay.
deck of cards, Bhuvan, you will make certain choices. In a deck of cards, there are number cards and there are picture cards. Okay. So
Okay.
I have to take one out. Do I take out numbers or pictures? You tell me.
Pictures.
Pictures. Perfect. So in pictures, we have jacks, we have queens, and we have kings. Which one should we use? Jacks, queens, or kings?
Kings.
Kings. Excellent. In kings, we have red kings and we have black kings. And don't let my color influence you. So do you want red or black? Which one do you want?
Okay. Let me see. Let me see. Red.
Red. Now maybe because I said don't let my color influence you, that influence you, and you chose the
Maybe.
opposite. So if
Maybe.
you want, you can change your mind. It's up to you.
No, I'm going to stick with red.
Stick with red. Final choice, hearts or diamonds?
Hearts.
Hearts. So you made all the decisions. You decided pictures, you decided kings. you decided red, and you decided hearts.
Hearts.
Yes. So the king of hearts is the card that you came up with. Yes.
Yes.
And there's no way I could have influenced you. Yes.
Yes.
This is the first time we are interacting. We've never set this up, nothing like that. Yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
I would like to believe so.
Yes, I hope that's true. But look, I'll take the cards out. Just tell me, can you see the entire deck when I take it out? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see the cards?
Yeah.
Look, I'll spread the cards one at a time, and you'll see one card is a little different from the rest of the cards. One card is actually facing the other way around. What card is that, Bhuvanyu? The king
Of red with
of
hearts.
hearts. But look, you might think, okay, maybe this is some kind of sleight of hand. Maybe when he was spreading the cards, he turned them very quickly, did something. But no, I could not have done that. You know why?
Why?
Because look, this is a blue deck, and you
Okay.
said the color red, and this is the only red card in the entire deck. The entire blue deck, and the only card that is actually red. But wait, no, Bhuvanyu, wait. I told you this is the third story of coincidence, yes?
Okay.
You could have only said the King of Hearts. You could have
Yeah.
only said the King of Hearts because look, this entire deck is entirely blank. Each and every card, there is no card in the entire deck. The deck is absolutely blank except for one card and one card only. And if you were here, I would give this to you, the King of Hearts. Bhuvanyu, you've just created the biggest story of coincidence. Thank you.
I have no words to say. I literally do not have anything to say because what if I had said black hearts, black diamond, and
Black
king?
spades, black clubs.
Yeah.
What if you had chosen Jack, Queen, or what if you had said numbers?
Yeah.
Anything, and the result would have been different.
Okay.
Or maybe the same. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Wow. Literally, I don't have anything to say. I'm truly speechless. And I consider myself to be a very, very cynical and very skeptical person. I try to look at all these things. Throughout the conversation, I was being very much careful of the words that I was using. Yet you were able to, create this illusion.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. Thank you.
Wow. Man, you need to get more visibility. I would not just for today's podcast itself. Like I have my co-host, he's not available here today, but I really would want you to actually, become a regular guest on the podcast. And, I want you to get as much visibility as you can. One thing I would like to say here is that, so you know Karan Singh Magic. You know how he has grown. He picks up some of the famous influencers and he shows them a card trick and he uses that as his content. I think you should do that.
Yeah,
Why don't
I
you do
mean,
that?
that's the conventional way to do it. But
Add your own twist, add your own authentic twist.
Yeah. I would like to figure out if there's something unique, because people have now seen that, and that's also being done around the world.
Yes.
So that's of course the conventional way to do it. But if I can add my own spin to it, if I can give something else to viewers that they're not even expecting that they wanted it,
Yeah.
that's really the goal here. And I'm figuring out things. In the pandemic, it was very difficult to meet people or even interact with them. So magic as an art form didn't work. I was doing a lot of these virtual shows, which is why I already have the setup and everything.
I see.
I was performing for corporates and stuff virtually.
Right.
And I had to figure out ways to actually perform this virtually because it's very different. The entire art form changed.
I absolutely admire what you are doing. I admire the way that you're, figuring it out, doing it online. And I want you to actually get as much visibility as possible. And, personally, I'll be saying one thing. And this is something that actually hurts me a lot when I say this. So I know a lot of, influencers in the YouTube space, be it finance, be it cultural critics, be it all these. These guys, ask for money whenever they do a podcast. Business guys. These are top level folks. And it hurts me. It hurts me that, there is someone talented out there. There is someone who actually, wants to, build a free market of themselves. And that's why, I want everyone to get as much visibility as I can provide them. and just make sure that they grow. I don't care if I grow. I'm just doing this for myself. Every weekend I'm just sitting here talking with folks, and I want them to actually get as much visibility as possible.
I think you'll definitely grow, man. If you keep doing this consistently, there's nothing that can stop you. The only thing is figuring out a business model where for years when you're doing this without actually,
Getting
earning anything
monetized.
from it,
Yes.
where do you actually get the money? Like that's what Joe also did. Joe Rogan, even though people were watching it for years and years, he wasn't earning that much money from the podcast.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's the same with Magic. Like I'll tell you my personal dreams of Magic. Like
Right.
the goal is to be able to do really difficult stunts, something that actually pushes my body and the boundaries of what's been done in Magic before. Now that requires a lot of capital. That's a very big ambition.
Yes.
No magician in India has ever done that or had that kind of an ambition, because most people think it's impossible to do, frankly, with the kind of audience we have, the kind of, the kind of conditions we have of the live performers. It's very difficult to monetize an art form where you're actually pushing your own body. It's not even sustainable, because if you push your body for a lot, first of all, there's physical harm. Yes. Plus, if your body is already, there's a preparation time, and if your body is already, you're resting for 5-6 months because of how far you pushed it, you're not earning anything, and plus it's a very limited time period. You can only push it in the next, like I'm 24 now, I can only do it for the next 15 years maybe, and by 40 it won't be a viable career choice. So I only have the next 10-15 years to be able to do and see how far I can push my body. So
you look mature. I thought you would be older than I am, but in fact you're younger than I am.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
No, and personally, like I was even younger. I never realized how these last 2 years went away. So I was 22 before I remember, and then these 2 years just went away, and now I'm 24.
Same here.
Those are all of us. So yeah, how old are you?
27. Last week I turned 27.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, man. Happy belated happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. So, I think we have spoken a lot, and almost we are hitting a 1 hour mark. Is there anything that you...
I am curious about you, how you started this, what's been with the whole journey, what all other people are you interviewing? I can get you in touch with Karan. I am sure he'd love to do an interview with you.
Sure, man. Sure. Yeah. So the thing is, I am an engineering graduate by education. By profession, I got into a career which is more like in the management side of the things, like marketing, sales. Last year, I started dabbling in finance. I have a mentor. He taught me a lot. I still, learn from him a lot. He's a big guy on YouTube. He has got 100,000 followers. And finance, something, just blew my mind. Because the one thing that I love about finance is compounding. Anything in life compounds.
Yeah. And that's very different from compounding of fame. Because the problem with fame is the more famous you get, there's bigger chance of actually losing it all. But with wealth, unless you make very stupid decisions and put all your money in Dogecoin or something, I don't know, there's very little chance of you losing it all. Yeah. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So I am truly blessed by God that, last year I decided I'm going to restart making content. Actually, my conversation with Prakhar was in 2020 of September.
Oh.
I had a personal tragedy in the month of December 2020, due to which I was not able to, figure out things. Like shit happens. And due to which I stopped. Come 2021, I actually got in touch with Ankur Waripu. He did not ignite a fire in me. He did something with me that actually pissed me off very badly. And through no fault of his own. He is a genuine guy. But what actually happened, that spark was lit. And I thought that, this year I'm going to make it. On my channel, I'm going to make it. And I've been doing this since 2017. So coming back, when I said that, I am an engineering graduate and I transitioned to a more of a management role, marketing, sales and finance eventually in 2020. I was like, यार मेरे को placement नहीं मिलने वाली college में, ठीक है, मेरे पास कोई skill set है ही नहीं as an engineer. But I can make content. I am confident in front of a camera, And let's see कि जो है ना क्या होता है. Let's figure it out. So I started making it, and that time, मतलब 2017 में Bhuvan Balm was blowing up, crazy, right? So I started making all sorts of wines. So I made about 60, 70 wines videos. And some of them are still live on my YouTube, like on my Instagram, not on my YouTube. That was a different channel. It got copyrighted strike and blocked. वहाँ पे हुआ. Then I got a job that was killing my creativity, like killed my creativity entirely. 2 साल तक वो job करी. उसके साथ साथ, so I am also like passionate about fitness. I thought, you know what, why not make some kind of a fitness and vlogging kind of a thing? Maybe let's try my hand at that. मैंने 2 साल वो भी करा. Didn't really work out. उसके बाद, and that was up until 2019. 2020, I realized, you know what, I have to do something that, you know, is easy for me and I'm going to enjoy a lot. Conversations with people always, you know, teaches me tons of different things. I'm really curious, really curious. And something that I'm also like trying to get better at is the art of storytelling, the way that you did. Okay. So I hope, you know, I learn from you. I hope you learn from my art of storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's how this channel, as a podcast and as, you know, my own, it's an extension of myself. Right now, this channel. Who knows in the future what will happen? But there are some exciting projects lined up. I'm really happy that, you know, things are now literally, it's like dominoes are falling in place. That's how I look at it. So maybe, you know, 2 years from now, we will be speaking and you will be sharing your own story of how dominoes lined up for you.
Yeah.
I really want that to happen.
Same for you, man. I want that same thing to happen for you. And it's an amazing initiative. And yes, you rightly said that you have a very analytical personality and that suits podcast really well. The only thing is I heard this interview of Beer Biceps and he was saying that it's very difficult for podcasts also to go viral unless you're talking about something current, something that's trending around in the world. So maybe what you can also do is like talk, I don't know if you've already done this, but like maybe talk about the Ukraine-Russia situation with a person and cut that into pieces and, you know, figure something out that like that. And,
so that piece of content has been like created. It was created last week only. But it's with my co-host और उसका ना editor काम पे ही नहीं आया हुआ है तब से, तो वो content ही बाहर नहीं आया अभी तक.
People don't realize how difficult editing a podcast and all of these things are, especially like watching the entire 1 hour of content again and making it like it's a lot of hard work, man. It's not easy. People assume you just switch on the button and start recording. It's not.
No, but it's actually pretty easy. After a while, you know, it becomes easy because you know your personality automatically starts to come up.
Right.
एक बारी जो है ना सिर्फ शुरुआत करने की जरूरत है, तुम थोड़ा लड़खड़ाओगे. And even with my conversation with Prakhar, if you had seen that, उसमें मैं बहुत ज्यादा बार जो है ना अटका. I was saying a lot of, you know, nonsense things, and Prakhar called me out on that. But he said, you know what, you made me think, and I enjoyed that. Okay, so the one thing that I have taken away from my conversation with Prakhar was that don't take yourself too seriously. You don't know what's going to happen. You have only one life. Just make sure you are going to explore every possible opportunity that you're going to get.
Yeah, I think Prakhar did the exact same thing with Anand Gandhi. Like the way you maybe asked a lot of what you felt later on was stupid questions with Prakhar. Prakhar did the same thing when he was asking Anand Gandhi, who's a very big filmmaker. He asked some things that didn't make sense. And Prakhar was just trying to over-intellectualize the whole conversation and trying to show how intellectual I am. And Anand just said, no, this is wrong. And so everyone goes through that. And when you're trying to show that I know this and maybe you don't, and that's okay. Like,
no, I'm willing to be a fool. You know, as Jordan Peterson said, you have to accept that you have to be a fool before you become the master. I'm willing to be a fool for the next 5 years and ask questions and keep on asking questions. That's my philosophy right now. That's all that I'm doing.
Amazing. And we could have just cut the podcast here, but I'll give another insight to the viewers who are watching it. You talked about story and marketing and all of that. I think that was our entire conversation today, which was interesting.
थोड़ा सा motivation भाषण में घुस गए last के 10-15 मिनट में, but yeah.
So I'm actually reading this book right now, Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I'm also helping a friend figure out his branding strategies and all of that. And so this book actually talks a lot about how you can position yourself and your brand. And I think everyone has to create a personal brand or create something in a company. So anyone who's watching this who'd like to get some perspective, that book is really interesting, because ultimately it's really about, so one of the insights in the book is that people, first of all, people have short time horizons and
Yes.
the short time spans. Their attention is getting shorter. Plus, people, you need to clarify your message. People don't have the time to watch your entire thing. Let's, if someone
Yeah.
asks you what do you do, and you start telling them 10 things, people would like, okay, so how is it relevant to me? How is it interesting to me? All of that thing.
Yes.
So here's one insight he tells. He said people need information based on what information will help them survive and thrive. So that's a very storytelling way of thinking about it. So for example, David Blaine, even though he's a magician, the way he gives information out is as if magic helps you survive. So what he says is, he says, I was performing magic for a black person in jail. He went to jail once for something. And so he was inside the jail cell and he was performing magic to these black guys who were much bigger than him. And they reacted in a crazy way. Then he did to a very rich lady inside a restaurant and she reacted in the same way. So the way he says it, magic unites people. And that's a very powerful message, because now you know how important unity is in this world for all of us to survive. So only by him saying magic unites people, that's such a good branding insight. And so whenever you're trying to position yourself or any of your brands, whoever's watching this, or your own personal brand, tell people what the problem is, then tell people how you help them survive and thrive in this world. And that's all you need to. So for you, it could be, for Bhuvanyu, it could be, in a world that's filled with misinformation and short dopamine instincts, I help people give conversations that engage them and finally help them become a better human being. And it's
Yeah.
as simple as that. And people are like, wow, I need to watch Bhuvanyu's podcast.
Yeah. Wonderful way to actually, conclude this conversation, and I'll hit record.